This is Optimal Living Daily, episode 2938, Change and Why You Don't Have to Suck at It, by Greg Audino of gregaudino.com. And I'm your narrator, Justin Malik, reading you blogs every single day of the year, including holidays. Without further ado, let's get right to it as we optimize your life. Change and Why You Don't Have to Suck at It, by Greg Audino of gregaudino.com. How do I even begin this? After all, change is one of those concepts that is really just too large to fathom. It exists in everything. It's everywhere. It always has and always will. Kind of reminds me of outer space, just a never-ending, inescapable, and ever-expansive vacuum that we're all a part of, whether we like it or not. I suppose then that the best place to start the discussion is with those that choose to deny its existence altogether, and maybe we've all had a little bit of this in us at one point or another. I'm speaking of those that insist backwards and forwards that there is no change in their life. Everything is always the same, etc. The interesting thing about this is that some are happy about it, others are whining about it. However you feel about it, if you are one of those people that claim there is no change in your life, I regret to inform you that such a ridiculous accusation is rooted completely and utterly in fear. But where does that fear come from? And how can the same source of fear result in some people being happy and others being whiny? Well, ultimately, the fear starts by having an overemphasis on the outside world, by not having enough love or trust in oneself that ultimately your outer circumstances are left to define your happiness. Fear not. Very few people in the world are not in this boat and therefore not pummeled by the idea of change. What comes from that, however, and affects slightly fewer people is what I like to call the invisible anchor. Most of us are constantly in pursuit of an anchor to our lives, an unbending solution to the majority of our problems. We say things like, one day I'll have the perfect relationship or job or home, etc., and that will always be in place and it'll make all other things easier. We do this because we want to trust that something will always look after us and do the work of keeping us okay so we can go on autopilot. But the truth is that that doesn't exist. And it doesn't exist because no outside source can possibly keep up with the constant change that is your life. So when things on the outside are generally fine, even though inside's a mess, you feel like everything is going all right in life, and you're tricked into thinking that the anchor is in place. Of course, you try to ignore the fact that your situation can and will change. These are the people that are happy to deny change because they like things just the way they are, and change threatens what will soon prove to be a finite blanket of outer circumstances that they have draped themselves in. The only difference between these people who are happy without change and those who complain about no change happening in their lives is that one party likes their current situation and the other doesn't, but is afraid that attempting to make change will only result in failure, which of course would leave them without anything to believe in. The fact is, it's the same fear of not having things figured out. We're scared of the emotional challenges that we'll face in accommodating to changes of all shapes and sizes because it requires work. But this is one of those things in life that is inevitable. So change is scary for those who try to pretend that it won't always happen and try to hide from it. Whether it's trying to prevent a potential oncoming change, being too fearful to initiate the change you desire, or resisting a change that's already happened, of course you're setting yourself up for failure. For as much as humans crave the uncertainty of adventure, spontaneity, and risk, we also crave the certainty of believing we can always lean on something outside of ourselves, something that'll absorb the brunt of the impact and keep us safe no matter what. It's like children clung to their parents. But we all know the truth, don't we? We're always one decision away from having an entirely new life. Change is indeed that powerful and that possible. So get a jump start by reclaiming your power over any doubt you may have. Shift your attention to what you want by becoming a dictator of change, thus changing your relationship with the idea of change and being less rattled when changes out of your control come to you. It can be a long journey inward to become one of the many that don't overemphasize the outside world, but you can begin by focusing on the change that you want for yourself. And if you'll entertain me, I think the following simple exercise will help you clear the air and do just that. Whether we're talking about relationship change, career change, or whatever else, write and honor 3 lists for yourself. The first is a list of things you want to continue doing. things that feel right, bring you joy, and would be nice to keep around. The second list is a list of things you want to start doing, that which you want to incorporate into your life, but haven't paid due attention to in the past. And the third list is a list of things you want to stop doing, poisons that have had a negative effect on your current situation and would not be useful to you in the change you're creating for yourself. By creating these lists, you'll put yourself back in the driver's seat and be reminded that you are the director of your life, capable of developing the change that you want and having the right blueprint to stick to when unexpected, adverse change does inevitably come to you. You just listened to the post titled Change and Why You Don't Have to Suck at It by Greg Audino of gregaudino.com.
This episode is brought to you by Pete's. Few things start your day better than a good coffee. That's why Pete's hand roast their coffee from a specific selection of high-quality beans. And they don't just put those beans into anyone's hands. Pete's trains their roasters for 10,000 hours so they can master the roast that gives you the most. Pete's Coffee. Coffee for coffee people. Find Pete's online or at your local retailer.
Thank you to Greg. If that name isn't familiar to you, Greg Audino, it should be. He's the host of Optimal Relationships Daily, which is just like this show, but instead of focusing on personal development and minimalism, he narrates authors covering relationships, all types of relationships. And also try out those lists he mentioned at the end of the post. I always love it when there's a nice short takeaway, something we can work on from these posts. So as a quick reminder, those 3 lists were things you want to continue doing, start doing, and stop doing. Simple as that. So try it out. Thank you for listening and being here and for subscribing to the show. Have a great rest of your day. I'll be back tomorrow as usual, where your optimal life awaits.